Welcome back to That's Entertainment with Brenton and
Cheryl.
And we are about to have our interview with the crib. I can't. I'm pressing ask to unmute. There we go.
Let them unmute it over there. Unmuting. Can you hear us?
Are you telling us to keep quiet, are you? Before we even begin?
No.
Hey?
Sorry, guys. It's just that. Yes, we heard you say we've unmuted.
Must be a Perth thing.
Yeah, Western Australia. Wait a while.
Western Australia.
Look, we're getting the gas lights next week.
Yeah.
That's all right. You'll get there slowly. You'll get there eventually.
No. Welcome. We have here we go. Moe Masri, Mohammed, and Celine George on with us, and they're all in the production of Gallipoli and Untold Stories. So welcome.
Why are the webcams not on? We'd really like your webcams as well if we can.
Oh, you want the webcams on? All right, here we go.
Oh, we can see.
Yeah.
See beautiful faces.
There we go.
So tell us a little bit about Gallipoli and the Untold Story. Anyone?
Okay.
Probably from Mohammed, because Mohammed is the actual director and playwright of this wonderful story.
Okay, great. So I didn't know much about the Middle East, believe it or not, before I came to Egypt. I'm actually in Egypt at the moment. I was brought up in Australia all my life. Dad came to Australia in the 60s. Never really had a connection with the Middle East community in Australia, so didn't really know much about it until I came here. And I studied drama and opera in London about 15 years ago, and I was staying with some New Zealanders, and one of my best mates is a New Zealander. And his mate walked in, James Webb, and he saw me and he goes, "Where's he from?" And my mate goes, "He's Egyptian heritage." And he said, "Oh, well, he's the enemy." And I said, "Enemy of what?" And that began cooking the idea of, the Anzacs and Gallipoli, some people thinking that Egypt was an enemy. When I got here, over many years of research and, going to the memorial every year with the embassy here, I realised that Egypt has always been a friendly country with its allies, who were back then England, Australia, and New Zealand. They are now with America. Still allies with England and Australia and New Zealand. And there's a friendly story to be told. So that's why I began the story. Who's that?
So it's quite surprising, sometimes you find that things have been leading you all along to get to this story. And this definitely is one that, for both Mohammed and myself, it's just felt like it was meant to be. I was just saying that going through some of the photos that I have from the past, I found this coincidence that had happened in my life back in 2018, where I had the opportunity to be in Turkey on the 25th of April and be fortunate enough to be able to attend the Anzac Day ceremony and dawn service at the place at the Cove, Anzac Cove itself. So it was quite an amazing, fortunate, I guess, turn of events that just led us here to be able to be organising and getting this play off the ground together. Wow. To be both from an Egyptian background and grew up myself, born as well and raised in Australia in Melbourne all my life, and also had no clue who was on whose side.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just an amazing story to be able to tell and to be able to see it from a perspective that is not often heard about, probably very little understood.
Yeah. Can we let's hear from Celine. We'll ask for her to unmute. Have you unmuted there, Celine?
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Can you hear? That's good. What's your involvement? You're one of the cast members.
Yes, I am.
And how have you found it?
Well, I am not Egyptian, though my husband is, so I don't know. Does that make me Egyptian by marriage? I'm Lebanese, so for me, it's significant to be able to tell a story that bridges both my cultures, both the Middle East and Australia, and show a light or tell a story that perhaps is not really told, a story that isn't really known. And so to be in a position where I'm able to bring to light a story using my passion in life, which is performing, that shows us that when we sit down and actually listen and spend time together, when we strip everything apart, when we put all our prejudices to a side, when we put all our preconceived notions or misconceptions or biases to a side, what we find is that we have a shared humanity. And I really think that this is the essence of the story that we tell. And it's such a beautiful story to be able to share, especially in the context of being able to do so in a way that is meaningful to both of the cultures that I align myself with or identify myself with.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and that's a very important point about the human condition. So the story strips away, eventually over time in the story, strips away a lot of the misconceptions, and it leads to that human condition of just humanity and harmony. And obviously the historical factor in the background, we did research with Matthew Harding, who's a Deakin academic from Melbourne, who actually did a lot of research about what was the war actually about, why were we there for in the first place.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of academic factual checking that I had to do along the way to make sure that I've honoured the original story, the original narrative, and I've made sure of that. And what I've added is factual. So the story is fictional, the two characters are fictional, but they're basing their relationship on factual events, basically.
Okay. So now, how did you all come together to be involved in this project? I mean, Mohammed, you wrote it and you've had this idea, but you
had the idea brewing for years. I'll quickly tell you, and I got John Orsick, who used to write for Prisoner. I don't know if you used to watch Prisoner back in the 80s, and he used to be an actor on Cop Shop years ago. We did a bit of work together on it towards the end, and then I got Roger Ward, who was on Mad Max back in 1979.
I love Roger Ward, very good friend of mine.
Okay, great. Roger Ward also had a look at the script, and he was in what's the bikie movie?
He was in Stone.
Stone. Sandy Hubbard Stone. So yeah, he's a good friend also. He had a look at it. Once I got the okay from people that I've always admired, I contacted Moe and I said, "What do you reckon? Do you want to help produce it?" And he loved it straight away. Initially, straight away, he just said, "What a great story! Let's do it." Yeah. And then Moe found Celine, and I met Celine for like 20 minutes, and I heard her, and she blew me away. And I just said, "She's a genius. She's and she's a lawyer too, by the way. So
it's always good to have her on hand."
Yeah. So
just send us your cards, Celine, because we might need that one day.
It all happened quickly.
Yeah. Now, what's the actual story? I mean, to me, putting something about Gallipoli on stage is very new. Is it the battle side of it? Is it what's it actually about?
Okay. Well, I've always been addicted to one location stories. So my inspiration is Krapp's Last Tape, Samuel Beckett, 1955. And the good thing about one location stories, and even 12 Angry Men, if you remember that, also back in the 50s. So the good thing about one location stories is that you have characters in one place and they can talk about anything. They can take you anywhere. Yep. So the two characters are in one location and there's a transistor radio reporting on the events of Gallipoli before the landing on Gallipoli and then the landing itself. In the meantime, these two characters in the one location are getting to know one another. They're arguing, they've got all these misconceptions they're working through, and it's juxtaposed with the landing. So you've got your two characters, and then you've got the radio symbolising the few hours, basically, of the landing. So that's all it is. Yeah. So it allows you that imagination of being in one place and thinking what's going on outside, somewhere else. That's the beauty of one location stories.
Okay. Yeah, one location stories are easier, I think the stage, I love doing them because there's you don't have to change sets all the time. There's a pain in the backside, isn't it?
It can be.
It can be.
Definitely.
I just
I did it.
Yeah, I just like the fact that you're telling another side of the story, which is always good because there's always two sides of the story. You only hear so much when growing up through school as Australian, because I grew up in Australia, obviously. You only hear the one side of the story. You don't hear the others and the other perspective of where they were from, where they're positioned. And as you said, why did this happen? Why was this war here? And it's trying to understand the whole thing, to understand why we come together on Anzac Day because of this. And it's good. When I saw it, I was like, wow, someone's brought another sort of story, which is good to know and good to hear.
Yeah. Now, Mohammed, I understand that you've won awards in the past with stage plays that you've written. Is that correct?
Yep, stage and film.
And film?
So, yep. So we've won the Chicago Film Award a few years ago.
What was that
Seen
for?
in France. A film called Tierno. It's a film about female trauma. Mm-hmm. So I've worked a lot with female empowerment ideas. So this story is also about female empowerment, believe it or not, because when John read the play, John Orsic, he said to me, were Middle Eastern women back then allowed to do what she's doing in this play? And I said, yeah, there's a revolution in 1919 that was in Egypt, and it was started by women. And Celine's role in this play is very powerful. She is a powerhouse. Her character's a powerhouse. So I've done a lot of work on that. Another award I won was the Sakya Theatre Award 2016. I did a human rights play about human trafficking from Ghana to Egypt. So I've won a few awards. I can send them to you. I've won a whole list of awards. I don't know if you want me to go on, but
yeah,
so a lot of my work's
do. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah. So there's a few of them.
Awesome. And Celine, what have you been involved in the past?
Lots of things. So I own and operate my own theatre company as well, called the Thespian Theatre Company, which is dedicated to telling multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-diverse stories that represent the multicultural and ethnic stories of Australia and that represent the modern framework of Australia. But before that, I was writing, directing, producing, acting since the age of about 12. Mm-hmm. I've done a degree in a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Law. My Bachelor of Arts, I majored in Drama and Theatre Studies. More recently, I directed a show called An Evening with Khalil Gibran, which was 2 one-act plays that were written by the famous Middle Eastern poet Khalil Gibran. And we toured those around Australia, and they were a sold-out season. And then prior to that, last year, I was also in a show called Love with No Remorse, which was a sold-out season here in Melbourne, and that looked at the modern face of domestic violence in Australia, and that was directed by James Wong, who's got he runs the Hollywood Actor Lab and has got credits like Grey's Anatomy, Memoirs of a Geisha, Kung Fu Panda, things like that. So if I was to list, my spiel would probably be here forever because we'd be going back. But the arts have definitely got my heart, and I especially am passionate and my mission, or I'm dedicated to telling stories that represent the multicultural fabric of our society, so that people like me can see themselves represented and don't necessarily have to go through the struggles or break down the barriers that I've had to in order to be taken seriously in my career in the arts. Awesome.
And Mo, how far back do you go in theatre?
Theatre, I guess, I remember taking drama in high school. Always loved it. But no, straight out of high school, I turned my attention towards business and thought I'd do what I love a little bit later on in life when I get settled and financially stable and all that sort of stuff. But also love of travel is pretty much what brought me here. I think, as Cheryl was saying earlier, like when you travel, and I love to travel and not just spend a couple of weeks. I actually love to live in a few different places. So I've had the pleasure and opportunity to live in Japan for 3 years, and in Turkey for a year, and in Egypt for 2 years. And when you talk to people and really get to know them and find that different version of a story that you know and you were raised with, it's quite, it makes a big impact to finally hear, a different perspective altogether that you didn't realize. And it's like, how many people throughout Australia who, may have had multicultural parents and heard stories, or when they go back to different countries, hear about the same event that they were raised with and we learnt about in social studies, but hear it from a totally different perspective. That's what amazed me. And I also had an opportunity to go through the education side of things and work as a teacher, and get into the stage where I'm working as a principal and other things like that through education. And I thought, it's great to be able to have that opportunity to represent the diversity that makes Australia so rich and so valuable. Like I think when I traveled overseas, I was probably one of the most blessed when I compare myself to others who grew up, whether in America or in England or in Canada. That, I didn't realize how lucky we were here to be able to have the diversity that we have. To be able to go to a friend's home and, their parents are talking that local language that they come from, their background, to be able to smell the smells of the foods and everything. It's like visiting a different country on your way home from school, every day, and you go to a different home in a different country. So that richness is unfortunately not very well represented in our social studies. Like, we hear the stories, but pretty much, one perspective, and that leaves a lot of people out that are sitting in that classroom that, also have some involvement in that same story, but do not get much of a mention. So when this came up, I just, how could I not? I think, as I was saying earlier, it's just to be able to have those bits and pieces throughout life that just sort of, the milestones were there to just sort of lead you towards it. Surprisingly enough, also a big love of theatre developed within regards, like, I remember being young, hating musicals when I used to see them on TV, but then being so taken, like, I'm one of these people, and I hate to say it, but on the bandwagon with the Hamilton play and the work that has happened there. It's just, I'm such a huge fan. Back in 2009 when he first presented it at the Obama event that took place, and he just presented that one song, I loved it ever since. And then when it came out, I just couldn't believe it. I was thinking of going to America to see it, and then Sydney to see it, but lockdowns happened. And then when it came to Melbourne, watched it like 5 times and dragged everyone to it.
I can't wait. I'm hoping it comes to Perth.
We here in Perth, we don't get the shows like you do over there.
Oh, I can't believe how much you miss now. Oh,
I know. I lived in Melbourne for 29 years, and it was great because Melbourne is, Melbourne's rich with a lot of professional theatre, whereas Perth is very community theatre based, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So there's a big community theatre base here, but we don't get the professional shows like Melbourne does. I mean, you had Phantom of the Opera there for like 16 years or something like that, and everyone was coming from everywhere else to come and see it when I was living in Melbourne. I saw it. It was a great show. But here in Perth, they don't have the shows come here. We all have to go over there.
Well, we do get some shows. We had Moulin Rouge, and we've got Tina Turner one on at the moment. So we do get some shows, but there's some things like Hamilton and Six we only got for a very short time, but I think Six is coming back. So that's why we call wait a while. We get them when we get them eventually.
But you did. But Mo, getting back to having lived in the different countries, so you've experienced the different cultures who were on different sites. So you've experienced every different angle of Gallipoli, basically. So, and I believe that every different culture would have a completely different take on it, and say, "Oh, this has happened," and everyone, because there's no winners in war. But they would have all said, "Yes, we were the victorious, we were winners," or the rest of it. And each different angle would have the other side
I think with the story of World War One and the Gallipoli War itself, I don't think I guess, yeah, it's a situation where no one tries to claim victory as such. Everyone sees it as a great shame and loss in that it happened in the first place. That so many young lives were lost in even when you watch the movies or the TV shows, you just see them going over the trenches and they're just getting mowed down. And when we were in Turkey and we were attending the tour and they were explaining to us, we were right there. We could see where the trenches were on one side, and less than 100 meters, like I guess on the other side, you could see where the other trenches are. That they were just coming up and being mowed down by the machine guns. And when the Turkish tour guide was talking about it, he was saying that, Turkish soldiers were feeling bad about the young lives that are being lost, but what are they going to do? They're the enemy that are coming to attack. Yeah. Either shoot or be shot, basically. But they could just see them because the whistle would go off, so they'd know when to fire up the machine gun, and off it went. And they'd just all come up and be mowed down. And it was such a terrible loss of life. Like, it was, even when you watch it on TV, it just feels senseless. Like, what was it all for in that respect? So big respect for those, obviously, who, made that ultimate sacrifice. And I think that's what we tried to do and make sure we honor with the play that we're doing and telling the story the way we're telling it. Because, how can you not pay respect for anyone who does that, that goes halfway around the world hoping to do what they can to do their service for their country? Yeah. Also having a brother who served in the army for 10 years, getting that side of the story as well, and knowing, what a sacrifice it is for all armed personnel who, try to do their duty for their country. I just, when it comes to the leadership of countries and some of the wars that, we find ourselves sometimes getting into, you hope that we never have to do this. We never have to see this kind of loss of life ever again, because these brave people, the families that they could have led and the stories that they could have had, it's an opportunity for us to be able to tell that and try to shine a light and bring that story back to life, to allow the younger audiences that we hope will be able to attend our shows to be able to connect with them again and see some of those, different perspectives of different stories and all those people that have lived over 109 years ago, and were hopeful of being able to achieve great things to honour their country and honour the king and queen that they served. To be able to bring their stories to life, I think that's where we hope that we'll be able to really play our small part throughout this lifetime.
Yeah. And Mohammed, can we unmute you? Yep. So, Mohammed, when you were writing this play, did you look at the possibility of interviewing? What historians did you speak to?
I spoke to an academic, and I read a lot, and I just read up on a lot of material. Yeah. So yeah, 2 academics and a lot of reading, months of reading actually. Yeah. So basically, let me simplify it. There's a good movie called Queen of the Desert, Nicole Kidman, 2016, right? Mm-hmm. And you got Lawrence of Arabia, Peter O'Toole. So they were the continuation of what initially happened at Gallipoli. So it was it was the Great War, so it happened for a few years until 1918, and Gallipoli was sort of the beginning, and 1918 was the end of it, and that was Lawrence of Arabia. So everybody's seen Lawrence of Arabia, 3-hour film, but nobody knows what it's about. It goes on forever. And that film is basically the end of the Great War, World War One, which was the Arab forces beating the Ottomans, who were the Turks. Yeah, we referred to them as the Turks in Australia. Yeah. And that's what Gallipoli was, the initial, the beginning of that, going to get the Turks. And it was the Germans too. The Germans were allies with the Turks back then. Yeah. And it was the Arabs who finished them off eventually in 1918 with the help of Lawrence of Arabia. Gertrude Bell, who Nicole Kidman played in the film, wasn't mentioned much. Unfortunately, women were rubbed out of history for some reason back then. But apparently she did more work than Lawrence of Arabia in that war. Okay. Yeah, so Gertrude Bell is a really important figure in that story.
Yeah.
in the overall story. But obviously everybody knows Lawrence of Arabia, and everybody's seen the film, but nobody knows what it's about. It's
True.
so long.
I don't know what it's about. I just
I
know.
have to watch it
I
again.
just know. What was his name? Who was in it?
Peter O'Toole.
Thank you, Peter O'Toole, wearing the robes and everything, and being out in the desert with his blue eyes blazing, and
No prisoners!
yeah.
No prisoners! That's it. That's all we know.
That's all we know. That's all we remember from it. I mean, it was a great film, but it really didn't tell the story very well. Because it wasn't
You
memorable.
could fall asleep and get up and it's still going, It's like, it's still on, And the music was great in it. The orchestra was great, but nobody knows what the hell's going on in it. So anyway.
True.
So our play's only an hour. So in that hour, it's very straightforward, straight to the point.
Yeah.
And Celine plays an absolute cracker of a character in her role of Nabiha, who's the Egyptian girl.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant she is.
So what was the purpose of writing it for just a 1 hour? Why does it feel?
Well, it just happened that way. Initially, I was going to turn it into something a bit bigger, and because I did a play called Ubu Roy. It was an Alfred Jarry play, an old French play. Have you heard of it? 1896. I did that one. That was a huge one. I had like 40 cast members. We had a chorus. We had dancers. I was thinking on that scale when I began this, and I said, no, it takes years. It's a lot of money. It might never come. It might never come to fruition. It might never happen. So let's just make it small. One of my good mentors, Simon Fisher, back in Melbourne, used to say to me, "Keep it small." 3. What do you used to say? He said, 3 chords in the truth. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Because I was obsessed with opera when I was studying under Simon Fisher and all this big stuff. And he said, "Why do you like all this big glamorous stuff? 3 chords in the truth, country music, That's what it's about." And that's sort of what came to my mind when I started writing it. Keep it simple, keep it small. And who knows, it could get bigger. It could be a bigger thing, could turn into a musical. We could get more staff, casting, who knows what could happen. But I initially wanted I was thinking about 2 soldiers, an Egyptian soldier and an Australian soldier, going off to the war and forming a friendship. And then I said, how am I going to stage all that? And I said, why don't I just keep it in one location? And then the idea of the girl came to me as I was writing it. So 2-hander, small little play.
Yeah. Would you ever expand it into something about the twice the length, so a 2-hour play at all?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I like big productions. I'm really heavily involved in the opera the last 5 years.
Yep.
I'm obsessed with big stuff. Simon doesn't like me doing big stuff, but I just do. I like a lot of cast members. I like music. I like dancing. Yep. So who knows where it could lead?
Yeah.
That's good.
Cheryl likes music and dancing.
I'm a musical fan. I'm in a musical at the moment.
Are you?
I mentioned though. Major Performing Arts Centre down here are doing Priscilla, Queen of the
great.
Desert. So
Fantastic! Oh wow!
Yes.
And we all know what that one's about, whereas we don't know what Lawrence of Arabia is about.
I know.
So
How do you get the bus on the stage?
there is a way we have. Well, the theatre company I'm working for, not working, but I'll say working, but it's not paid. They always come up with an idea of what it is. It might be a stage truck with a fly down, and then they just spin it when they need to. And
Okay.
I'm not quite sure yet because I haven't seen the workings of behind the stage yet. I'll be doing that very soon because I always like to help paint and set and stuff like that. So I do all that as well as costumes and help with props. So I do a lot.
Great.
But it's pretty good. We're not going to be like the one they did in Burswood where they did have a bus because they had actually a revolving stage, and I don't think Mandurah has that capacity. But there will be a way that, it's quite fun. So how do we watch this Gallipoli Untold Story? Because we're in WA at the moment and we'll probably have to go over to Melbourne to go and see it. So where do we go?
So Mo can answer that, I reckon.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're doing 3 performances. We're going to be doing the first, the opening night is going to be the day after Anzac Day on the 26th of April, Friday the 26th of April at Kensington Town Hall. Kensington Town Hall is an amazing venue established in 1901. and it's got these two huge cannons out front. You can see it on our socials. It just feels and imbues the Great World War and World War One. Beautiful stained glass windows and everything. I love that venue. So we're going to be doing the opening night performance there, and we're hoping to be able to also have a discussion with some academics post the performance. So that'll be on the opening night, and then we're going to be having two more shows on the Sunday, the 28th, which is the following Sunday. The matinee is ideally, we're trying to engage and interest schools and students to be able to come on board, teachers and parents to be able to attend the matinee session and be able to hopefully maybe one day also start talking to schools, building up some resources around it for academic purposes, to be able to have it go into schools and be something that can be more openly discussed when we're teaching Anzac or the story of Anzac. Also cultural diversity because of the different representations that are involved and different representations that are being able to perform it as well, and how the characters grow in understanding and respect of each other. There's also the evening session on Sunday the 28th as well. So they're the three shows that we'll be doing in our first season, but all going well and hoping for good feedback from that. We'll be looking to try to take it around the country.
Yeah.
Awesome. Have you got a proper ticket website you get from, or if we go?
No, we do. We have it on Try Booking. So, and if you go to the Try Booking website, you can find it there, or you can type up the bit.ly link, which is, we'll share that through the socials, but it's bit.ly/G-ASU in capitals. A story untold. Awesome. So ASU is what we usually go with, and that's the name of the production company.
Cool. And what's in the pipeline for after the Gallipoli play?
We're not revealing that just yet. We do have a few things on the cooker. Mm-hmm. But mainly one of the things we're really liking, and obviously having fantastic, team members on board like Celine and Mohammed, being able to do more stories that are often untold from different cultural backgrounds and different perspectives, stories that we are all familiar and we are all aware of. I'm a big fan of true stories and history, and just being able to have more of that can be discussed and can be more engaged with in school and in classes, but also being a platform like Lin-Manuel Miranda did, to be able to bring diverse casts to the theatre and support the arts and support arts within diverse communities, because unfortunately too often diverse communities are not seeing arts in the way that perhaps some other cultures see it in Western culture. I mean, despite, many cultures having a huge richness to their history and their culture and the arts in their respective cultures. But, when people migrate and, like my parents migrated to Australia and many others from my community did, they all push us to, they sacrificed, moving away from their family and friends for us to be able to achieve. And for them, that achievement doesn't come at the expense of arts. It comes at the, wanting us to be doctors and lawyers and, engineers and whatever it may be. We really would love to see more diverse communities, being promoted and loving the arts and being interested in the arts, because it's where we hear great stories. It's where stories come to life, and those, stories could be what allows history to continue going on into the future, because history being taught with numbers and facts and, figures about what happened, when it happened and all that, is just not as interesting as it is when you can hear the story. Well, I heard that, this person, who has a similar story to mine, in terms of adversity and being a foreigner in a strange country and having to prove themselves and, connecting with others and realizing that story. Yeah, they're the stories that live on.
Cool.
Can I just say one last thing? Because I'm a real advocate for keeping it an Australian story also, because I was obsessed with Australian film, especially in the 70s and 80s. And I don't know what happened after the 2000s. It sort of died down. I don't know why we're not making films anymore. And
I can explain that, but keep going.
Everybody's going off to America, learning the American accent, trying to be American. I think it's terrible. And I think you should keep that Australianness happening.
Yep.
And I've tried to keep that Australianness in the story. It's not a multicultural story. It's a very Australian story that has a character that has a different insight about happened back then. I really want to make that clear because I used to do a radio show back with Addie McLaughlin back in 2011, and we used to host the Australian Film Show. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to convince everybody to stay. Why you all want to go off to America and learn the accent? You know, Jack Thompson and I think it was Steve Bisley refused in the 80s to go off to America, you know, and learn the accent and keep the Australianness going. So anyway, tell me why
Steve Bisley, another great guy.
He was the producer of Mad Max. Yeah?
He was another good friend of mine. I've had a couple of beers with him. But back in the day, we had the 10AB. Now, the 10AB was a tax offset for the Australian film industry, where originally they were, I think it was 150% of the investment the producer could claim back. And that's why we had a lot of the exploitation films, you know, such as Mad Max, such as Stone, Turkey Shoot, all of those sort of films. You know, Stork, all of them. And then the government reduced that to 100%. So we were still getting Australian films being made, but they were, you know, the incentive wasn't there like it was before. If you could claim 150% of your investment back on tax, you're going to do it because you're going to get 50% more of your money coming back to you. Whereas once it gets to 100%, then you're only guaranteed to get back 100. You know what you invested. You're not going to increase it.
Okay. So it's about money, is it?
And then it was this for the production companies. Then the production companies they couldn't claim anything back, and so it was a reliance of the profits coming back in from ticket sales.
Yeah.
Theatre was cinemas have always been a struggle ever since the invention of the television, and lately you've got your streaming services, and you know when videotapes were around, when VHS and all that, when video rental stores were around. Initially, you had to wait for about 6 months at least before, from the end of a cinema run, before you could get hold of a home video copy of it. Now they're straight onto streaming services, straight out on DVD within a week of it finishing in the cinemas. You know, there was a movie that was made in Australia and America, which was to me it was a cinema phenomena because it lasted Crocodile Dundee, exactly, because it lasted something like 16 months or more in the cinemas. It actually had its VHS release at the same time because they had to get it out on VHS. The production company, the distribution company was saying, we've got to get this out on VHS, on video. We have to release it, and it was released on video while it was still in cinemas. But it was to my memory, it was the only one that actually lasted so long because it was such a big film, and it was such a groundbreaking film.
That's not a knife. This is a knife.
But
what about films like Breaker Morant and Sunday Too Far Away? You know, The Club, David Williamson. Don's Party. Fantastic films. You know, they're not internationally known, unfortunately.
No.
I love all those films.
But again, you know, it's now come down to money. I've been in the film industry for a long time. I'm 54. I've been in the film industry since I was 10. I directed my first short film at 10 years old. And so that's 43 years I've been in the industry. The problem is that there isn't, you know, there's money there, but you've got to have, nowadays, Screen Australia, Screen Victoria, Screen West, all of them, they're not going to release any money unless you've got a big name actor in there. The problem is that big named actors that fit your story are not in Australia, so you've got to pay for them to come from overseas. You've got to pay for them to do this. If if they would only just give the independent filmmakers the chance to make their movies, because they can do it on a small budget. We don't have to. Us filmmakers don't need a lot of money to make a movie. I can make a movie on $35,000, right? A feature-length film, but you know they want big-name actors. Otherwise, they're not going to invest. If you go on a big-named actor, you've got, you know, oh yes, it's $1 million just to get me out of bed. It's another $1 million if I'm up before breakfast. You know, that sort of thing.
Right.
You know, because it's greed, but it's Hollywood greed. You know, Hollywood have a lot of money, and that's why a lot of the Australian actors are going over to America. There's money there. You know, there's money here, but not as big. But it's cheaper for production companies to make movies here, which is why King Kong was filmed here. It's why King Kong, Kong of Skull Island or whatever it was filmed here. You know, Pirates of the Caribbean was filmed in Queensland. It's because it's cheaper to film here than it is to film over there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And also the education in Australia is fantastic. You know, NIDA, all the drama schools and film schools is fantastic. But where's everyone going after that? That's the problem. That's why I left. I left in 2013. I came to the Middle East, in Egypt. It's the Hollywood of the Middle East here. It's massive. 200 films a year, theatre plays every week. It's non-stop here in English and Arabic. That's why I left Australia, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'll be back.
Awesome.
This is why I have so much respect for people like Steve Bisley and Jack Thompson, all of them, because they've remained where their roots were. You know, they've remained in Australia. You know, some of them have gone overseas, but they've come back.
Brian Brown's a great actor. Yeah, I mean, he did what's it called? What's that film with Tom Cruise? Cocktail.
Yep.
But he's still a great Australian actor. You gotta love Brian Brown.
Well, he did Cocktail. He did the FX movies. But yeah, he still keeps his roots here in Australia. He did one a few years back. I can't remember what it was called now. Where was a few of them.
Was he a gangster?
No, this was where a few of his friends. It was a drama. It actually felt like a pilot episode for a TV series, but it wasn't. He'd bought a property, and there was this house that had a chimney that was blocking his view. So he went and bought that house so he could knock the chimney down.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't remember the name of the film, but it had. What was his name that was in Jurassic Park? Sam Neill. Had Sam Neill in it.
Sam Neill.
Yeah, as well as Brian Brown. So it was, you know, it had big actors, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are you talking about The Castle or no?
No, not The Castle. Not The Castle.
That's something else.
No, this was only a few years back in the we're talking about probably 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Was it Dean Spanley?
What was it? Sorry?
Dean Spanley?
Don't think so. I don't think so. I can't remember. Cheryl's going to look it up, and we'll probably tell everyone on air. But
I do take your point about ticket sales being important to support local arts. I mean, it's terrible just hearing stories, even in the music area, like Splendour in the Grouse being cancelled. Like that's quite a huge thing. You know,
that was a huge thing.
Another opportunity for local talent to be able to get that international stage with international acts, to be given that opportunity to be able to, it's scary where it's going to happen, like what's going to happen in terms of being able to provide platforms for our local talent to be able to get that launch. And
just to add to that, La Mama, which has been a Melbourne institution for how long, is now not actually able to produce work, is shutting down.
Oh, you're kidding.
Next year.
It's shutting down for a whole year because they didn't get the usual government funding that they rely on. It is shut. La Mama Courthouse is shut down. It will not be producing work for a whole year because it was refused the funding it normally relies on.
Wow.
Which is Like that's a Melbourne theatre institution. And even though, even when it was burnt down, it got burnt down, but it still managed to continue. It is now stopping. There will be no work from La Mama, which is like, as Melbourne theatre professionals, that's something that we mourn, which is a really sad thing for us.
What could be done to help save La Mama?
Well, they need funding. This is what it comes down to, is that they need funding. So they ordinarily rely on, they get a particular arts grant from the government that they get every year. Every year they have to fight very hard for it, but they get it. And that's what gives them the buffer to be able to produce the work. But this year they were refused. They were not in the applicants that were selected for the arts funding, for the arts grant. And so because of that, they find themselves in the position where they will be shut down for 12 months. I think the announcement was made last week.
Well, no, that's sad. Hopefully they can recover from that in the 12 months afterwards. But look, even Hollywood movies are not getting the audiences that they used to. I took my young son to see the new Ghostbusters film, which is a great film, by the way. Fantastic film. I loved it, right? A lot of nods to the original, had the original cast except for Harold Ramis. But it was, it didn't have, what was his name? It didn't have Sigourney Weaver or Rick Moranis in it either. They had the original Ghostbusters, though, and there were a few nods. There was they went into the library again, and there was the female ghost there that, turns around and goes, shh, and then, charges them. But it was the day after it opened, the second day, and we were one of 3 people in the cinemas, or one of 3 groups. There was like a couple up the back, and there was a guy that was a couple of seats behind us, and then myself and my 3-year-old. And it was a $10 cinema. It was only $10 tickets. So it's not the cost of going, but it was just
a fact. Talking about, the change of viewing habits and audience habits post-COVID, post-lockdown.
Is this post-COVID? I was going to say, is that post-COVID?
Yeah.
But I mean, I would rather go to a cinema and watch a movie than sit at home where you, as soon as if you're watching a movie and it gets into that lull point, you're like, you're sitting in the cinemas, you can't exactly go to your phone, you can't switch channels, you can't do anything. You can walk out, but that's a waste of money. I've only ever walked out of one movie once, and that was Babe, because it was too long for my then 3-year-old at the time to watch in the cinemas. I've got a 30-year-old and I've got a 3-year-old, and I've got one in between, but that doesn't count. I'm sure she does, but anyway. The point is, though, that was the only movie I ever walked out on, and that was because it was too long a movie for a family film. But Ghostbusters, which was, again, a long film, it just didn't have the audience. And I'm like, why? These are $10 movies. I'd rather watch it in the cinema than watch it at home where you've got distractions. Can you're sitting there with your girlfriend or your wife or whatever. No offence, Celine. But she might say, "Oh, honey, can you get me another coffee? Can you give me a glass of wine? Can you do this? I've left the cheese out there. Can you bring the cheese in? Can you bring the chocolate?" And by the time you've done all that, you're like, okay, what's happened in the movie? I wasn't watching. And your phone's going off, and you're sitting there with your mobile phone scrolling, and you're missing half the film. That's why a lot of people with horror movies, for example, are sitting there going, I'm not, I didn't feel that was scary. Well, the reason it wasn't scary is you're sitting at home and you're scrolling through your phone at the same time. So we've and Disney, one thing that's really annoying me, now Disney are buying up every movie company, Marvel, 20th Century Fox, whatever, you name it, and they've now turned around and said, we're not going to be producing any more hard media copies of films after cinema releases. So no more DVDs, no more Blu-rays, no more HDs, none of that. It's only going to be on our streaming network. So those who collect the hard copies, like myself, I have a lot of DVDs that I love. You can't buy them anymore. And they might have cost you $30. But to watch the movie now, you can only get on this streaming service, which is what, $9 for the month?
Yeah.
They're killing the industry because they're saying, okay, well, we're only going to charge you $9 a month, but you can watch as many movies as you want that month, right? Yeah. Instead of, we'll charge you $10 to see it at the cinemas. You have to see, if you want to watch 4 movies, well, it's going to cost you $40. Plus, if you want to take your other family members, you've still got to pay $10 for each of them. So it's going to be $40 for a family of 4 to see a movie. And that's cool. Yeah. But, then you want, if you're a collector like myself, Marvel, for example, you can't get those films anymore because Disney have said, oh, no, we're not going to do any of those anymore. It's only going to be streaming. So this is the industry that we've come to with the film industry. Theatre is still alive, thankfully, and still very enjoyable. And most theatre shows, to my knowledge, are getting full houses because it's so entertaining.
That's been my experience in more recent years. All of the shows I've done since we got out of lockdown have all been sold out seasons. So I think theatre, we're still in safe hands for now. And I think it's more so for theatre. I think it's a matter of ensuring that future generations also engage, that it isn't an art form that dies, that it's an art form that continues to have engagement, and future generations also invest and find interest in that art form and don't become numb to the streaming culture. And I think that'll be the challenge for theatre in generations to come, to ensure that it moves with future generations. It just doesn't die out.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to ask?
No, I think we've covered.
I think we've pretty much covered it. Guys, I wish you all the absolute best. What I'd love for you to do, if possible, is we'd love an autographed poster or an autographed program or something. Do you reckon you could organise that for us?
I have no doubt that we'll be able to organise something.
Fantastic.
So, very happy to.
Fantastic. No, that'd be great if you could, because, like I said, I'm a collector, so... But, our show, that's what our show's about. That's entertainment. It's all about the entertainment industry. So
don't forget, if you're in Melbourne or want to fly to Melbourne, go to Try Booking and look it up. Yeah. Look up Gallipoli, An Untold Story.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. For coming in. Thank you, Mohammed. And
I want to find out who else is in this play. Who else is in this play besides Celine?
You have a character called Jeffrey. So it's Jeffrey and Celine. So Jeffrey's the name of the character, and that's all we can say at the moment. So Jeffrey and Nabiha.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So two-person play?
Yep.
Awesome.
Two-hand play.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, shookers for the production, or break a leg, or whichever you want. Don't go quoting anything from Shakespeare. Not from the Scottish play. Chookers for the production, and I look forward to interviewing you guys again. I think we both do.
Great.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We'll keep in touch.
Great.